Okay, let's dive right into this because what we're looking at today, it's not just some standard software update, and it's definitely not just another chatbot release. We are talking about a high-stakes, literal $4 billion corporate battle over the actual bottleneck in enterprise technology right now. OpenAI is making a massive strategic pivot, and honestly, the implications of this are going to stretch way, way beyond Silicon Valley. So here's our battle map for this explainer. First, we'll look at the AI integration bottleneck. Then Anthropic's enterprise lead, OpenAI's huge $4 billion pivot, the two competing AI philosophies at play here, and finally, how all of this is completely disrupting the consulting industry.
All right, section one, the AI integration bottleneck.
Now, to really grasp why OpenAI is making such a drastic move, we kind of have to rethink what actually makes AI so difficult to adopt. Like, why is enterprise AI stalling? Seriously, if you're a Contact, you have absolutely felt this friction. We have these models that can instantly write code, draft complex legal briefs, analyze massive data sets in literally seconds. So you'd think your entire company would just be running on them by now, right? But they aren't. So why?
Well, here's the unexpected truth of the matter. Model performance is no longer the bottleneck. The raw underlying intelligence of these models, that is not what's holding companies back anymore. The models are, for sure, powerful enough to solve the problems. The real headache is figuring out how to actually plug that incredible raw brain power into a messy, complicated, pre-existing corporate structure.
Yeah, the actual constraints here are just the completely unglamorous realities of corporate IT. We're talking about integration, trying to hotwire bleeding-edge AI into, 20-year-old legacy systems. It's change management, which really just means getting actual human beings to use the new tools. It's building out evaluation harnesses, surviving those agonizing corporate security reviews, and doing the extremely slow, frankly painful work of redesigning entire business processes from the ground up. These are the real physical hurdles of enterprise AI today.
Okay, moving to section two, Anthropic's enterprise lead.
Because while OpenAI was out there capturing all the flashy consumer headlines with ChatGPT, their biggest rival was quietly capitalizing on the exact bottlenecks we just talked about. 8 of the Fortune 10 companies, 8, are Anthropic's Claude customers. While everyone else was distracted by consumer adoption, Anthropic just zeroed in, almost entirely, on helping the absolute largest companies in the world navigate those super complex security and integration hurdles. And to give you a sense of the sheer scale of this lead, Claude Code alone has blown past a staggering $2.5 billion annualized revenue mark since it launched. I mean, wow, that is pure enterprise contract conversion. And remember, that's the segment that pays the highest revenue per customer. It provides those crucial multi-year commitments that AI firms absolutely desperately need to justify their massive, massive computing costs.
So the absolute crucial point here is this. Anthropic currently holds a massive 32% lead in the enterprise large language model API market. Think about that. That isn't just some slight edge. That is a dominating gap. And it's exactly this massive gap that OpenAI is staring down right now, realizing, uh-oh, we're behind, and desperately trying to reverse. Which actually leads us perfectly to this quote from OpenAI's COO, Brad Lightcap. He said, "Our customers tell us they need help going from pilot to production. Deployment company will put our engineers inside their teams with the resources to ship." You guys, this is a profound admission. OpenAI has fully realized that just handing over a brilliant piece of software, it's just not enough anymore. They literally have to physically bridge the gap between testing a fun little pilot and actually running it in full-scale production. Which brings us to section 3, OpenAI's $4 billion pivot. So to fund this massive countermove, OpenAI has launched an entirely new venture backed by initial funding from a really heavy-hitting private equity syndicate. We're talking 19 different firms led by TPG, alongside heavyweights like Advent International, Bain Capital, and Brookfield. Now, you might be wondering, why structure it exactly this way? Well, because the specific kind of private equity capital builds serious operational scaffolding. It essentially gives this new deployment company its own balance sheet to scale up a massive delivery organization, completely shielding OpenAI from having to absorb all those heavy costs directly on its own income statement. But, and this is key, they aren't just starting from scratch here. To hit the ground running, OpenAI is rapidly snatching up assets.
Starting with Tomorrow. This is a London-based AI consultancy founded just back in 2023, but they already boast major clients. We're talking Mattel, Red Bull, Tesco, Virgin Atlantic. Actually, fun fact, Tomorrow was already kind of acting as OpenAI's unofficial deployment arm over in the UK anyway. So bringing them officially in-house, it instantly gives OpenAI a proven working consulting motion that's already generating real revenue. And they are scaling this thing at absolute breakneck speed. Industry analysts are currently estimating this new unit is going to hire somewhere between 2,000 to 4,000 deployment engineers in just the next 3 years. Let that sink in. At fully loaded tech salaries, you're looking at a multi-billion-dollar annual burn rate before they even see a dime of revenue from new customer engagements. It is an absolutely staggering financial risk, completely designed to just win the market at all costs. All right, let's look at Section 4, two competing AI philosophies. Now, what's really interesting about this comparison is that we are witnessing a huge strategic clash between two drastically different theories of enterprise delivery. On one side, you've got OpenAI building what looks a lot like a Goldman Sachs-style embedded expert model, right? They want their own highly trained elite engineers sitting directly inside your corporate office. But Anthropic, on the other hand, is leaning hard into an SAP-style ecosystem. They're relying heavily on a network of external implementation partners to come in and do the heavy lifting of integration. And look, both models can definitely work, but they have radically different consequences for long-term profit margins and, of course, customer lock-in. Which brings us to our final part, Section 5, disrupting the consulting industry. You know the old saying, when elephants fight, the grass gets trampled? Well, right now, the grass is the massive traditional consulting industry, and they are caught squarely in the crossfire here. Seriously, if you work in consulting, you need to pay close attention to these vulnerable incumbents. Accenture, Deloitte, IBM Consulting, Cognizant. Historically, these guys have always been the default delivery vehicles for basically every single wave of new enterprise software. But if AI labs like OpenAI are suddenly building internal consulting arms of this sheer scale, these traditional systems integrators are facing a direct, literally existential threat to their core value proposition. They are going to have to redefine what they offer, and they're going to have to do it really, really fast. Which leaves us with this final kind of provocative thought to chew on. By sending thousands of their own engineers into corporate offices to, untangle messy legacy data and navigate complex office politics, will OpenAI fundamentally revolutionize how AI deployment is done? Or is there a real risk here that over time, their underlying economics are just going to start to resemble a high-margin services firm like Accenture rather than a pure bleeding-edge AI research lab? I mean, it is a $4 billion gamble, and the entire tech world is absolutely watching to see how this plays out. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer today. Keep asking those big questions, and I'll see you next time.